All right. Looks like we got enough people here to get started. Welcome. Today is August 28th, and we're here today at BioTools Innovator talking about product strategy and roadmap. And this is really how to do more with less and avoid common pitfalls because hardware is hard. If you've ever been in the field, you know that it's got a lot of challenges, but it also comes in software, which is also hard. But that's okay. I'm your host. Oops, sorry. I'm your host. Here we go, Jim West. I'm the Associate Director at BioTools Innovator, and I'm excited today to be joined by an awesome panel. So we've got Gavin Stone from Plino Inc., Peter Lee at Conifer Life Sciences Group, Seung-Hwan Cho at NanoSelect Biomedical, and Ulrike Rin at BioMaru. And so I'm excited to have them all here today. They have a wealth of experience and background in building products. Let's get into it. So what I'd like to do is have each of you just introduce yourself to the group. And then if you could just talk a little bit about your experience with product development, and maybe if you want some of your personal philosophy and perspective as you go through that. And Gavin, we'll kick it off and start with you.
All right. Yeah. So my name is Gavin Stone, with a startup company here in San Diego called Pleno. We are developing a new kind of diagnostics instrument platform. Well, it's more than just diagnostics, based on a technology that we came up with called hypercoding that kind of fits between next-gen sequencing, PCR, and microarrays. We're getting ready to start commercializing the platform. We started about 3.5 years ago. Yeah, we're in this exciting kind of product development stage now where, gearing up the manufacturing operations, commercialization efforts, and really starting to get this into customers' hands. Before this, I was at Illumina after they acquired the last startup company that I did. And originally my background is in telecommunications, which sounds kind of crazy that I'm in genomics, but we've taken a bunch of technology over the years from the telecoms industry and applied it into kind of the life sciences space and been very successful in doing that. I guess kind of a philosophy that has always helped through all of the different startup companies I've been part of is probably something from Jim Collins's Good to Great, which is get the right people on the bus and sitting in the right seats on the bus. The people is what's going to always make or break you, and tapping into a strong network, working with people you've known before, and kind of building organically has always served us very, very well. And it's been a kind of a team that has gone through all these different startup companies, the core team, and then kind of surrounded ourselves with the necessary experts and getting those right people on the bus.
So Gavin, you've not only done it in the past, you're in the middle of it right now. So
in the absolute thick of it right now. This is the pinnacle of of the whole exercise.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. And Seung-Hwan, can you introduce
Yeah,
yourself?
sure. Good morning. Hello, everyone. I'm Seung-Hwan. I'm the CTO of NanoSelect Biomedical, also in San Diego. Yeah, NanoSelect is a startup company dedicated to developing benchtop flow cytometer and cell sorter, which is portable and also affordable to individual bioresearchers lab. And our key innovation is the gentle cell sorting by piezo actuator and through disposable microfluidic cartridges. So this cell sorter has been commercially available globally. And recently, I'm proud to say that we have taken another leap by developing a next generation image-based cell sorters, kind of combining a microscope and flow cytometer and cell sorter to lead the new emerging market. So history of NanoSelect is it was a spun-off from UC San Diego, where my graduate studies laid the foundation of its core sorting technology. And ever since the company was founded, I have navigated through a lot of challenging transition from academia to industry, moving from ideas to prototypes, sometimes working, not working, and finally to commercial product. So through this journey, I have made plenty of mistakes. And today I would love to share some of the mistakes and also lessons I learned from those mistakes with you. And my philosophy is, just to keep in mind that I can be wrong, and also always be aware of budget and resource constraints as a startup company.
Right. Thank you, Sungwon. Ulrike?
I can go next. My name is Ulrike Rehn. I started my product development journey actually evaluating new technologies that were just a piece of paper at the time or in a patent for an investors fund. And later I worked very heavy in new product development for cell therapy at Thermo Fisher Scientific. Then I moved away from new product development, more on the commercial end, which I'm doing now for a couple of years. First at Eppendorf, basically for a broad range of products, how to position them in the market, pricing, everything in the life cycle management. And I recently joined bioMérieux. So now I'm in the diagnostics world and also very heavy in product development and life cycle management. So I think overall, I had a really good exposure from cradle to grave, everything that's related to products. And I really love it. Maybe my theme and topic, I would connect to what Gavin started to talk about how important people are. I think what is really critical is to create the right culture to drive the best results. So I think I'm very close to what he mentioned.
Great, thanks, Ulrike. And Peter?
Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Lee. I'm the CEO of Conifer Life Sciences Group. So my career started after grad school and postdoc in medical imaging systems in large companies. It started with 3M company. Gavin mentioned that the book by Jim Collins about like Made to Last, for instance, and Great by Choice, all these books, and 3M is one of the examples. So a lot of the product development part of the philosophy actually I learned from my experience at 3M for nearly a decade. After the medical imaging systems, I migrated, get into the life science tools industry, work in a startup company building biosensors, systems, consumables, and assays, after that, I spent 15 plus years building a startup company called Nexlum Bioscience, and we used optical technology to look at imaging technologies, to look at cells with the cell counting viability, different kind of metrics, and the image cytometry to serve the drug discovery and medical research industry. That business was acquired by strategic acquisition in 2021, not a few years ago. And so since then, I am a co-founder of Conifer Life Science Group. What we do is we actually start up life science tools businesses within our group. And so far, the first business is a protein and antibody generation business. It's a novel technologies to create special proteins and antibodies. I'll say my philosophy beyond what's been said already is actually also described by Jim Collins. It's called empirical productivity, but empirical creativity. So basically it says that you can't really expect to get everything right at the first shot. You really have to stay close to customers, get feedback as quickly as early as possible, and to change your product features and capabilities to address the true market needs.
Awesome. That's a great start because, over the years, we've seen a whole bunch of different models in product development. And we've seen software sort of adapt from that. Let's specify the whole thing out and do it over 2 years and have it fail versus more of a agile methodology that's been developed. But what I'd like to kind of kick off is, and Ulrike, maybe we could start with you. When you're thinking about product strategy, what are the critical aspects you sort of think about and plan for when you're just getting started?
I think it basically comes down to what you would do for the company in general. But at the beginning, the company and the product is almost the same. To have basically that kind of a business model in your head, you have to think about your go-to-market strategy, what matters for the customers, who your customers are, or at least walk in that direction. I think what is very critical is you have a lot of uncertainties. So Peter mentioned just that right now you cannot get it right from the very beginning. So it's really important to anticipate the uncertainties, but you have to name basically your boxes and understand your boxes in a sense of how you are going to make your money, what's your product, whom are you going to target, etc. So it's basically like having a business model from the very beginning for each of the product that you ever develop. I think that's maybe the way how I would kick this off.
Great. And just curious, hands in the room, who actually has an engineering background on the call here?
I do.
Two. Three. All right. I do as well. Reason I ask is because you know, when we first get into product development, the first thing you have to ask is, what does the product actually need to do? Gavin, maybe you could expand on kind of where Ulrika started, but then you know, can you talk about a little bit about specifications and how specifications are developed and sort of enter into this process? You're muted.
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean, when you start out, and especially in a startup, yeah, that the company and the product are almost exactly the same thing. And you're taking kind of shots in the dark, especially if you haven't done it before a bunch of different times. Speaking to people who have done it is absolutely critical to develop those specifications. Getting in front of potential customers is invaluable. So the whole voice of customer, and then figuring out what kind of a environment you're going to be selling your product into. Is it a lab environment, research environment? Is it regulated? Is it US? Is it international? Really mapping out kind of these sets of somewhat concentric circles and sometimes overlapping, and coming up with a loose set of requirements and specifications based on those requirements that you can shoot towards, but doing it in a way that gives you the flexibility to adapt on those as you learn more and are able to make better informed decisions throughout your early development process. And once you get into the later stage, things are way more baked. Your technology is defined, your product strategy is defined, your go-to-market is defined. But in those early stages, being nimble is of more importance. If you're kind of just a startup company, if you're like developing a product within a big corporate environment, is a whole different scenario. But as a startup company, that flexibility gives you the strongest advantage in those early stages.
Do you have any thoughts in terms of what you've seen? Are there things, specifications that people overlook or miss maybe their first time around that they maybe should think about that come to bite them later?
No, always. I mean, even like third, fourth, fifth time around, there's always stuff that you miss, especially if you're branching out into new areas. Like when we started Pleno, we had no idea how to build an instrument platform. And so we did our best, took our best shots at it. And I mean, every product is going to have its own nuances and things that you're going to miss. You just have to have a mindset and a team around it that is able and willing to learn and adapt, so that it's not a catastrophic event if you figure out you've forgotten something.
Okay. Seung-Hwan, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure, yeah.
Product development experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good, the feedback from good points from Kevin, and also Jim, you asked, how many of us are engineers. So as you know, I think the biotool companies I think kind of unique because engineers, they develop technology and product, and they take lead in there, and then the biologists, they just sometimes provide feedback and then tell them what's really required, what are the problems that needs to be solved. And the engineers, they often take assumptions because they think they learned enough to make a decision so that they take assumptions. But often those assumptions are wrong, especially in a new field in biology or medicine, right? So when you make assumptions and then you just you move forward with that assumption, then pretty soon you realize that, oh, I made a pretty wrong assumption, and then just you waste well, not waste, but you spend a lot of time and resources, and then sometimes you have to go back and then just establish the assumption, review it again, and then just go from there again. So I think I see a lot of just founders, technical engineering background co-founders, and they just make similar mistakes.
So get your assumptions, but then back them up with information and data from interviews, customers, things like that. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Getting solicit continuous feedback, and then just talk to them and talk to the customers. And that is why it's really important to find early beta adopters or early beta testers to get real feedback from those actual users.
Peter, how about you? You've had a lot of products on the market. I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but also like, have you seen your products just like abused in ways you never imagined?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first of all, when you work on the product specifications, it has to be very clear to have the end user in mind. So the end user is not necessarily the company, the industry, the purchaser, all that, but it has to do with who's going to use your product. And a lot of the challenges, especially for startup companies, the challenges in defining your customer. And so if you don't define your customer, a lot of the specifications are not very helpful because you can do all you do from your internal perspective, but if it doesn't match the customer needs, it wouldn't work. So that definition of the customer is really important, and it's not a one-time deal, right? Because it keeps changing, and you have to resist to define features based on the latest conversation you have with the latest, the last person you talk to. So that's really is a challenging adjustment one has to make because at the beginning you don't have the customer base, you don't know for sure who's going to buy. So you really listen to people who you're confident with. That they're gonna be really your end users. I think that will help define the specifications because a lot of the bells and whistles may not be necessary for your real users, but if you talk to a lot of people, then they may ask for it, even though they won't pay for it. So you have to be very careful about that at the beginning. And the other point I want to make is when you build the specification at the beginning, if you have a roadmap in terms of what kind of customer you want to serve, then you have a ability to create a framework where you can migrate from one place to another. So you can add things a little bit easier at the beginning if you set the specification up right, like more proper. Yeah, and then that's a kind of thing, again, it's a strategic decision you have to make, who I'm going to serve first, who I'm going to serve second, who I'm going to serve third, and that gave you a little migration in terms of what features and benefit. Is that a new product or just a feature improvement on the same product? And you can define specifications, define your product roadmap that way. In terms of whether or not you're going to have users that's out of your expectation, one example I have is with Nexlum, we made cell counters mostly for mammalian cells for cancer research, immunology, and so on and so forth. And we actually got a lot of questions that people ask us, can you count yeast? At the beginning, we couldn't because the optical magnification is such that we couldn't count yeast. And then we started to create a new model, really have a higher magnification optics, and that could count yeast. And that actually got us into a brewery market. That is a customer who make beers, the products, the craft beer in America. Lots of these craft breweries, they end up using our yeast counting specific product for that application, even though that product is also used for biomedical research, but mostly it's really for brewing. So that's something I probably wouldn't have thought about at the beginning when we were counting cancer cells or immune cells. And those are kind of things that people ask you for it. If you identify that's a big enough market, that's really interesting, that's useful, it's really helpful for the industry, then you can go for it. And it could be a small change, could be a product extension.
That's great. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole here with you, Peter, but just curious, when that kind of came along, was it one customer out of all of them was like, hey, I need to do this yeast thing? Or did you have a couple people come and you're like, oh, there's a trend here? Like how did that kind of come at you?
Yeah, the way we actually bumped into this is we at the beginning we went to a trade show that's the American Society for Microbiology. It turned out that for cell counting, the microbiology people only want to do yeast and bacteria, and they really didn't do the mammalian cells and those kind of work. So we decided that wasn't a good show for us, because we will go to American Association of Cancer Research, where everybody walking the hall will need a cell counter from us, and that's really different. And so, but we got enough interest, and there are these large brewing customers who say, if you can do this, then we will try it. So we made a prototype and checked it out in a large company's lab, and it seemed to work pretty well. And then we say, where do you go to conferences? Like, where are people like you hang out, right? And so they made the recommendation to go to a specific conference for brewing chemists. And so those people, I would say maybe 200, 300 people conference. And we went there, all of a sudden we became hero, because all of a sudden everybody wants that. So I tend to tell people, from the product market perspective, focus on a niche really quickly, and then you can expand from there. But if your product is very diluted in a very large market, at the beginning it's really hard to gain traction.
That's great. All right, and Ulrike, do you have an add-on here?
Yes, I just wanted to make two quick comments for the specification. So one was maybe to think about what the specification actually is in the product development process, because it should help you in the development process make decisions. So if you're too flexible, it doesn't serve you really to have your backbone and make the right decisions, and you just basically swimming all over. And so my recommendation would be to basically think about the categories that you have to cover for your product. Obviously, the technical specifications that's what's coming to mind for everybody first. However, what really falls off the thinking quite quickly, or isn't really on the radar, the product also has to be stored and shipped and packaged, and that belongs to the specification as well. So to give you maybe one quick example, I have seen that it wasn't really considered how a product was going to be shipped, and it turned out it couldn't go on a plane because of regulatory reasons, and the system that was developed, and that was not good to figure this out really late in the process. So that's
that's great. And I think anybody who's developed product, that the farther you get down that product development cycle, any changes that happen get more expensive as you get closer to the end. So that's a great feedback. And I think one advantage, it may be an advantage, it could be a double-edged sword, but one distinction between sort of the medtech innovator folks and our BioTools innovator folks is that the regulatory burden and requirement isn't really on our companies as much as it is on the medical device companies. And so that's good, because you don't have as much you got to do, but it may be as bad too, because I think some of those things are sort of forced on you. This thinking is forced on you on the medical device side. So one thing I wanted to hear, whoever wants to speak to it, is from a small company perspective, how do you guys think about quality management systems that sort of manage a lot of this sort of stuff, document control, how you sort of test, validate, verify your product? How should our companies be thinking about this as they're sort of going through the stages of their company growth? Gavin, do you have a thought here?
Yeah, so I mean, the way that we've handled it is to try and keep it as light as possible for as long as feasible, so that the engineering and science teams are able to move as quickly and innovate as rapidly as possible. But it definitely comes to a point where you have no choice but to really kind of switch over to rigor and implement a QMS. The phase where we've kind of switched over is going from kind of the prototypes to pilot. You have no choice to switch over there. If depending on how regulated your field is, you may have to start out doing it. In our field, we're starting to see a shift in the regulatory environment, whereas before we could just develop products for RUO and lab developed tests. Now the whole LDT space is being essentially forced to migrate over to IVD. And so having design controls and a QMS and having this rigorous product development process in place that becomes way more critical. But if you put it in place very, very early, then you kind of stifle that innovation and ability to adapt to customer inputs and market conditions changing and things like that. So it's a balancing act. Every company is going to have to decide what's best for them. Like I said, where we push that as long as possible, but that kind of inflection point going from like a proto 2 to a pilot, you have no choice to do it then.
Okay. Sungwon.
Yeah. And I agree with yeah, go ahead.
Oh, if you have anything to add, please continue.
No, I just to agree with what Kevin said. It can be kind of double-sided sword. I mean, early stage like alpha or pre-alpha phase, the implementing this quality management systems, it may really just kill the innovation, and also maybe just will not allow you to move as quickly as you want to move, because that's the kind of key competitive advantage as a small startup company, especially at early stage. But also at the same time, let's say when you move forward to beta or pilot, then you continue to just operate as you operated during alpha pre-alpha phase. Then you're going to have big problem that you pay huge price after that. So I think, like I said, it's really difficult. Every company has different situation, but finding balance is really important over there.
So I'd like to. Oh yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I just want to add a little maybe slightly different perspective. So I look at a quality management system as a business choice. It's about what kind of foundation you build for the business. So as such, I think the framework of quality management system to be in place is never too early. There are two components for this in my view. One is the framework of thinking how to think about it, and the other one is the rigorousness of enforcing a lot of these reviews, how much data need to be there, and how things get approved. And I think that the workflow is at the beginning of especially startup company or any company that's really starting a new product. I think the workflow flexibility is absolutely necessary. Because otherwise you would not be able to have all the data to make all the decisions. But I think the awareness and everybody's awareness of what decisions they're already making, I think is really important in that sense. So even if you have two people, you act like five department heads to make decisions, you're still making the decisions. I think sometimes I would say the challenge, in my own example, I see that some decisions are made that's not conscientious, that you make a decision, you didn't know you made it, and you live with the consequences way down the road. And those are the risks that you run into. One simple example, supplier qualification. And if you don't think about it, and you go down the road with somebody that definitely won't really go along with you down the road, a few years from now you're just you set up yourself for future headache. And so I think the framework of it is important. Decision criteria may be different, but I think the awareness of it is critical, because I've seen examples of companies building products that people just didn't think about it at the beginning, that really hurt them down the road.
That's such a great point, Peter. I've seen multiple companies where it's like they're buying some product from a company and using it in their product development. They're like, okay, but they never thought about, can we actually license this for our commercial uses?
Right.
And your vendor verification would help with that, sure. Okay, well, I'd like to switch over to or move on to sort of the topic of minimum viable products. And this question comes from a cohort, but I think the question is kind of, how do they fit in today's market, especially in life science tools? And how should companies be thinking about balancing the needs for sort of early market entry with customer expectations and what they're sort of able to develop? Let's see, Ulrika, could we start with you?
So this is a complicated question because it really depends. So if a company has a great technology but hasn't really decided on which application you would go into, it's wise to have an early stage prototype or anything that helps you to have the communication with your segment, with customers in that segment, and really try it out before you fix too much and go too far down the road. But overall, given the nature of our products that we are developing, sometimes you only have really one shot in a very long time to develop a device. And so you have to think down the road what you want with that product, even if you are not going to launch it in the first place. But the foundations, the technical foundations need to be there. So I don't think that there is a one size fits all to decide what the product is and how early you can go out, but you need the feedback from customers from the start. You have to explore and really decide on who is your target customer, what the needs are, but already built in features for the future, even if you are not going to launch them right away.
It's a really tough question because you gotta, you get one chance to make a good first impression, and sometimes your pilots you get one shot, so you got to balance that. Seung-Hwan, do you have anything to add?
No, I just agree. Just bring the MVP to all the adapters and potential customers' hands is the most critical thing. And then we got to be quick as a startup company, which normally don't have enough. We don't have enough budget or time, so just move quickly and then just deliver MVP to our customers. And then once they start using MVP, they will either break it or something. They'll just provide you real feedback and then unveil real questions and problems that your product may have. So that's actually where real engineering so development may begin. So it is really important. And like you said, Jim, yes, I mean, there's only one shot, right? But that's in reality we are facing. So, and that's the risk we have to take. And then, but I think the rule of thumb is that you have to just develop MVP as quickly as possible, and then just let your customers use it and break it as much as they can.
Peter, how do you know when your product's done?
That's a very good question. Product's never done, really. It's just that you just need to decide when to launch the product. It's because there's always things to fix and the features to add and the improvements we made. I think from the perspective of what products, either MVPs or any product you show to the customers, I think it's really important. A couple of things. Like one is you have to be convinced that your product can really solve the customer's problem. Whatever the customer problem is trying to solve, it can solve the problem, and that's really important. Sometimes when you sort of do a 50% solution, it's a 0% usefulness for the customer. So you need to have specific solution to a specific problem the customer having. That's really important. That's just so you have to understand that needs. You have to understand what's really going to be there. So it could be 10% of your future product. It could be 100% of your future product. It depends. Another thing that I just want to add is for a small company and for large companies too, but just to a lesser extent, for a smaller company, startup company especially, I think one thing you really have to protect is your reputation. So you definitely don't want to ruin your reputation by delivering something you tell people it's going to do something, but it doesn't do. So that includes all the minimum viable products, the models. And if you say the future product can do 5 things. Right now, I'm doing these 2 really well. That's fine. You set the expectations, and you get the customers buy-in, and they will buy your product because of these 2 applications. And you say, in the future, I'll develop these 3 in addition. But you can't really do 50% of all those 5. And that's really doesn't solve anybody's problem. You wouldn't be able to get adoption. So that'll be my advice.
Great. Gavin, do you have any tips or strategies for navigating sort of the balance between short-term client goals and opportunities with a long-term product development, where maybe that long-term is what really gets you to the place you want to be, but we all have limited time and resources, and we got these projects coming in. So do you have any thoughts or stories working through that?
Yeah, I mean, and it probably ties into the MVP quite heavily as well, in that my philosophy, and kind of it's followed through multiple startup companies, it's never too early to start engaging with your customers. Even when you just have a PowerPoint, get their ideas, and make sure that you're building towards solving the problems that they have. So they may have a problem that you can only solve long term, but if you don't start that process in the short term, you're never going to get to that long term. And if you kind of head off on a tangent, the longer you take to course correct, the more difficult it is. So if you have a bunch of ideas and you think you're solving a problem and you're doing it in isolation, and you take forever to go and kind of battle test those ideas with your customers, you're just setting yourself up for like either failure or just a huge amount of effort to course correct and get onto that. So, and it's important to get feedback from diverse customers. Pick the right customers, the ones that are friendly, that are known innovators. If possible, find key opinion leaders in the space. Build on past relationships. It's always better to have a warm introduction to somebody. Find somebody who knows the customer that you're trying to get feedback from. Build a relationship with them. But getting that feedback as early as possible is absolutely key to your long-term success.
Ulrika, do you have anything to add to that?
Maybe coming back to when the product is ready, which is indeed a good question. I think this ties back to what we talked about earlier around the specifications. If you have set your specifications, they should tell you when your product is ready. Other than this, you are just, again, you are swimming and you'll never make a decision. So maybe I just want to tie it back what we discussed earlier.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything to add? Okay. Seung-Hwan, I would love to hear about, the question here is really about what are some mistakes you've seen or you have made in the past in regards to your product development and strategy. Are there any stories you have that you'd like to share?
There are so many, but we're talking about, the importance of, talking with the customers, as early as possible. So when we first decided to develop, portable flow cytometer and cell sorter, this one of the criticized from, the other my co-founders or like some, potential customers is that, your product has only one laser and it can only detect 3 colors, fluorescent colors. And while your competitors, they can just have 4 to 5 multiple lasers and then 12, 13, 14 different colors, right? They can detect. And your sorting throughput is about at least 10 to 100 times lower than those things. So no one's going to buy that. So we thought, okay, maybe that might be true, even though we knew that our cell sorting can be more gentle, and then it's going to improve the viability of cells after sorting. But we kind of downplay our advanced competitive advantage. I really kind of just focus on something we didn't really have. But however, just after just talking with many users, we visit core facilities, individual labs, and talk to people, and actually saw how users use flow cytometer cell sorter. We realized that maybe around 80% of the users, they only need 1 or maximum 2 colors, and they don't need more than 1 lasers in 80% of them. So and our sorting throughput, even though it's pretty slow, but that was slow and just good enough for 80% of the users. So we realized, okay, we didn't really need to compete against, head to head against the big companies in a product. We just, we just address 80% of the users in the market, and we modified the strategy. So that, after we realized this, and we changed our kind of a strategy and pivot to focus on just our advantages, like low throughput but high viability self-sorting technology, then our product get more attractive. And then after that, we just I sat down with our co-founders, and then we said that, yeah, we don't have to just let's say we are developing a car. We don't have to develop a car that can compete against a Ferrari or a Porsche. I mean, people just go to market, they drive in a Camry or a Accord. So we just, that's kind of good enough spec for our product. And that's perfect, for our just company with the limited resources and in a budget. So I think just, the meet with, talk to your customer is really, really important. Not just, sending online, survey monkey type of, just emails, but actually visit their labs and see how customers actually use the machine, and then have, face-to-face discussion multiple times, not once, just multiple times. Then they will just, tell you more, stories and the problems they have. Sometimes we never understood. And then that's going to unveil, more, just possibilities for your, business.
It's so important. I think, have you guys read Stephen Blank's Startup Owner's Manual? His book there is basically, get out of the building. Don't develop on your whiteboard. Get out and talk to customers. And it sounds like you
exactly, yeah,
had a lot of great breakthroughs talking to customers and seeing how your product actually was placed, need, used, and all that stuff. So that's great. And you realize too, like, we don't have to be everything to everybody. We don't have to be even better than everybody. We just have to serve an unmet need of the market. That's great. I'd like to jump over here to another question that comes from the cohort. And I think, Peter, I'll let this one start with you. How can teams overcome challenges as it relates to product strategy, such as not having a clear product market fit early on? And so we see a lot of startups who are deep in science for years in the academic environment, but they've maybe not had time to fully flesh out the application. And we see this a lot where we've got a broad platform with broad applicability. It can affect a lot of industries. But the big challenge is you've got to find that one application you can actually go solve and someone will actually spend money on. So Peter, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a challenge. I think it really is a challenge because for development of the platform technology and for investment, attracting investment purposes and the increase of value of the company, the bigger the market, the target market, the addressable market it is, the better it is. But when you do the individual products, oftentimes that's really not the way that you can work on. You can't work on the whole market and everybody's going to buy your product. It's really challenging. So my thought is a focus on strategically focus on a segment of the market that you can address really well quickly. That's probably then you can demonstrate the technology can solve a single set of problems that's a part of the market really well, and then you can migrate to expand to address other part of the market. It turned out, I mean, it's really hard to address a relatively small set of needs really well. And if you try to shoot too broadly, I think that's often it's very hard to do it at the same time as for a company. So my example, like if you go back to the NanoSelect example, to identify why people are buying your product or think, why is that benefit that's a unique to your product, to your technology compared to other people's technologies. I think that's a very important determination at the beginning. And so there's nothing beats going to out to talk to customers, so really understand what their problems are and truly address their needs. And so that's how, I mean, it's really individually, it's sort of challenging to figure it out because if but there's no substitute for going out talking to customers.
Thanks, Peter. Gavin, do you have any advice on, and sort of kind of building on this, talking to customers, figuring out your beachhead, but if you're an academic team, if you're kind of spinning out from university, it's your first time kind of getting into the business, what advice do you have for teams that are sort of trying to transition from their academic team to a professional product development team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably comes back to kind of my opening statement about the Jim Collins good to great principle of getting the right people on the bus and getting them in the right seats on the bus, and complementing, understanding where you have skill and experience deficits, and then finding the right people to complement you. If you're just a group of academic founders and you're all scientists, there's no diversity. You're all going to think about solving problems in exactly the same way, and you don't have experience of kind of building a company or anything like that. So finding those right people and putting them in the right seats in the bus so that they complement all of your skills. Like I said, when we first started Plano, I had no idea how to build an instrument. I also had very little like wet lab biology experience. But I knew people who did, and I brought those people in, spoke to them about the idea, the concept, and then more ideas flowed from that. And we just kept on building the team and complementing it, putting the right people in the bus. And that's really kind of enables you to take something that is just an idea and turn it into reality, even if you've never done it before. But yeah, that diversity, the having no fear in admitting you don't know how to do something, and like that lack of ego in finding the right person who can do that better than you, is going to be absolutely critical in your success. If you just have the mindset that you're going to be the most important person in your company no matter what, and you're going to know the most no matter what, you're just setting yourself up for failure. I mean, at Plano, it is so multidisciplinary. It's insane. There's no one person in the company that knows everything about everything. So everybody is just open to learning all the time. There are no stupid questions. Everybody just is in this collaborative mindset, and everybody's in the right seat in the bus. So it all just works. If you get somebody who shouldn't be on the bus, it's very important to get them off the bus as quickly as possible, or get them into the seat that works better for them. And the longer that you take to do that, the more chance of your bus crashing. But yeah, that's really the concept, is putting the right people on the bus.
Seung-Hwan, you've lived through this too. Do you have anything from your experience to add?
Yeah, I just 100% agree with what Gideon just said. And also, I think the rule of the game is different. When you're in academia, you kind of try hard to prove that you are the smartest person in a room or in a group to solve the problems. Often the problem can be solved by you or it's a small group of people. But if you start a company, I think especially bio tools, you need to work with different engineers with different backgrounds, right? Software engineer, electrical engineer, firmware, and then the mechanical engineer and optics engineer, so many people. And also you have to work with, communicate with biologists. So you have to understand that you work with the team, and that you don't have to be the smartest person in the room anymore. You shouldn't be, actually. So hiring people who are smarter than you is way more important, and that should be your top priority. But however, this transition takes time, and then many PhD founders like me, they don't do this very well because of their ego, and also they are trained to work different way throughout their graduate student period. I don't know, 5 years or 10 years. So that's the most typical thing. And if I can add one more thing, I think academia, if you graduate that, and then the R&D, you tend to think that R&D is the most critical thing. So once you finish R&D and develop a product, whether it's a pilot or a first product, then you may think that everything is going to work out automatically. So you think, maybe manufacturing, scale up, logistics, or customer service will just work out. It's not as important and not as difficult as R&D. But actually, that's not true. I think Jim, you and I share your experience and my experience to audience. Another, I think it's just panel discussion back in June. We sold the first beta unit to Asian countries without having built proper distribution channel, a proper sales team, and then proper customer support team. And maybe just 2 weeks, we're so happy. We sold 2 units in overseas. We're a global company, but it became a nightmare right away. So I think those other things are also really, really important to operate your company and also to make your company successful.
Yeah, that's a great story. I was recently at a conference too, where a presenter was asking a group of scientists and sort of business people in the life sciences. They were like, who here, sometimes it's time to be impatient and sometimes you need to have patience. And they're like, who here is biased towards impatience? And I raised my hand. And then they said, who's biased towards patience? And everybody else at my table raised their hands, and they were all in research academia. Like, oh man, like no, ain't got time for that. So yeah, Peter, go ahead.
Jim, yeah, thanks. I just want to, I don't want to let this opportunity go by without mentioning Jim Collins again. I think we have some fans. We have some fans on this panel. It just occurred to me when I was listening to the panelists talking, and I realized that think about a startup company with a great technology, especially from academia. How do you pick what product to make and what kind of product strategy to make? That's really what I'm trying to think about. So Jim Collins has this concept. He calls it hedgehog concept. And so if you're interested, you should read the book. It's about the hedgehog concept. And that's really what this is about how to build a great company, what your core competence is. And the way to think about this is really to think about what you are really passionate about and what you're really good at and what people are willing to pay you for. So that's a value for individuals as much as for companies. And so a lot of times what we're passionate about is not necessarily what people are paying us for. Then it's not a good choice. So to think about how to make that choice, you have to consider all these 3 factors.
That's great. So Ulrika, I'd like to go back to you now. So how do you think about product development strategy, your plan, and in terms of sort of scaling and for companies crossing the chasm or pivoting kind of along the way?
So thinking about the product strategy and product roadmaps, that's the direction you are talking about and asking.
Yeah, we want to go product.
So I think it's as we discussed at the very beginning, for product strategy, it's like for the company, but then for each product that you also have, you need to think about how you are going to roll out your product over the years. There will be a product portfolio. I think what happens also quite frequently, you are falling in love with this one product and you are so focused on this not to think about what the next generations are and how to go from there. So I think it's helpful to have, for instance, a product roadmap that helps you to think through for whom you basically develop what kind of product. So to give you an example, if you have a device, you might have certain features and all of the customers are telling you what kind of features you want to have in there. However, you might have a difference between what an academic customer wants to have from you versus what biotech and pharma wants to have from you. You might develop the same product, but think about to roll out these different iterations of a product at different times. So to have their product roadmaps that help you to think through the services that you can have, the consumables differentiation, software differentiation, all of these things are part of the product strategy and should be mapped out in a product roadmap. There are many different types of product roadmaps. It needs to work for the company. to give you an example of a roadmap that I personally really like is basically to not only have the timeline, but also to think about what are the trends in the market first, and then to peel it down how your product or products in the future will serve those needs in the market, and then go down a layer even deeper and basically think about what are the technologies that drive those products and therefore then also fulfilling those needs. I think for me, this always has helped to think through long-term where you need to go to develop your technology competencies, but also to always have the fit with the market and to make sure that you have captured what's really important for customers. So again, there are many different types how to do it. But if you want, or if you are concerned how you keep track of market trends and your products, I think this is a really good type of a product roadmap to use.
That's great. Gavin, do you have any examples of how you've had to sort of pivot your product strategy as you've kind of gone down your development pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a few different examples. I mean, one like early on where, I mean, we realized the technology that we had, so we kind of took you often hear about this product market fit, but we took the reverse approach, which is a market product fit. So identifying a market that you want to go after, and then figuring out what product you would need for this and the technology for that product. And so we started down a path on one technology, but quickly realized that it wasn't going to be able to deliver a product that fit these market needs. So then we were able to then pivot and develop a different technology, which ultimately turned out to be way more innovative and advanced and solved the problem in a way that not only solved that problem, but solved a whole host of other problems and opened up the market way beyond what we originally had intended. So if we had started the other way around and we had this technology and we were looking for a market for it, we would have like painted ourselves into this corner and eventually would have failed because it didn't actually deliver on what we thought it would be able to do. So I think starting from that market product fit, if it's at all possible, rather than a product market fit, really sets you up far better for success than doing it the other way around. I mean, that's been my experience in this case and previously as well, but it just gives you the ability to make those mistakes and recover. Whereas if you start with a technology and you're hardlined on that technology and it doesn't pan out, your ability to recover is very, very remote.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that is our hour. So thank you for watching.